Hi and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto. My name is Nick, and today guys we're jumping down into the world of Bitcoin, taking a look at what's been going on most recently and what I would expect to happen next. Now as I get into this video, if you find it useful and informative, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, then why not go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. Now if you have not yet joined us in Discord, the link is in the description down below. It's a fantastic community talking crypto 24/7. It's completely free, and I don't think you'll be disappointed by what you find down there. So why not go ahead and check that out today? And of course, in the description down below, you'll find two other links. One to our Patreon services, where we offer a lot more for our Patreon members via Discord. Everything from buying and selling and staking alerts through to trading, project reviews, AMAs, and a whole host of additional benefits. If that's your bag, why not check that one out? And the second link is to the new Cheeky podcast, a fantastic way of staying up to date with everything crypto on your daily commute to the office. Why not check that one out as well? Okay, let's waste no more time though. Let's jump right down into this. Here we have a Bitcoin paired up with USDT on the hourly chart, and Binance is the data source. Now, we saw this large ABC corrective move come on up here towards $22,527. We were tracking this as a 5-wave structure move, but we also broke back down. And basically, we've now turned this into a 5 move going down. Okay, so 5 waves going down. This is pretty much aligned to my original kind of thinking of moving down towards our lower targets, about $15,000 to about $16,500. Okay, we'll talk about that in a moment. So for the most part, it's all very corrective to the upside, and now we are potentially looking at a pretty impulsive move to the downside. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to count out the wave structures inside this move and find out whether our wave 3 has finished, or whether or not we are still going down in wave 3 before we have a wave 4 bounce and then a final 5th wave going down lower. When we take a look at this and the scale of it, you can see this is actually relatively quite steep. Not as steep as what we saw over here, but this would basically be effectively a wave 1. So again, this would be looking for some kind of significant bounce afterwards. So once this is complete, we'll be looking for some kind of move. So I would imagine that on a slightly more macro scale, it would look something like this. Okay, as we start to pull on down. Okay, now obviously there's no guarantees that we go down into new lower lows. That the current low set at 17,622 according to Binance, and there's no guarantee of that. This of course could just be a zigzag pattern. It's too soon to really know, and if there is a zigzag, then essentially it still could just look something like this, and maybe we have a double bottom down here and then we move on up. Okay, so there's no guarantees of anything here, and based on the macro structure of everything else that we've seen, we've got a 5-wave move. Now, I was hypothesizing that this is wave 4 and that wave 5 still has to come on down, meaning that that is just wave 3 and our final 5th wave is going to be down here. This is still a possible count as well, so we can't rule it out. So we are still potentially looking at these lows, but again, watching how this next set of moves actually occur, what happens here is actually going to be really important. So from our scale here, we've spoken a lot about whether or not there's going to be any new lower lows, whether Bitcoin's already hit its bottom in a couple of videos previous. So right now what we're doing is we're kind of watching to see this structure form, and then we're going to see a bounce upwards, which is fine. That would be expected in either scenario, a zigzag or a 5-wave structure to new lows. And it's the 5 waves that happen afterwards that are going to be the most important, as they will indicate to us whether or not we are just in a zigzag corrective pattern, where I would estimate maybe a double bottom, or we are in some kind of 5-wave drop going down significantly lower into new lower lows, etc., etc. So let's go in and actually count this out, right? Because what's really important is to know whether or not we are, actually going to be finishing this wave here. So when we take a look at this, we have a clear move to the downside. Okay, so we just take this low and this high. Okay, we move this over to the bounce, and we can already see that we're quite clearly pulled down very, very significantly past the 1.618 and heading towards the 2.618. So we already know that this is pretty well extended down, and is definitely impulsive in its way that it's moving. So when we draw this out, we have a wave 1, a wave 2, all of this looks like wave 3 with no wave 4 just yet, and then a wave 5. But what we need to do is we need to ascertain whether or not our subwave counting inside wave 3 is done. So for that, what we're going to do is we're going to start counting from the top here. We've kind of got a move to the downside here. Where I'd say this is probably a wave 1, this is a wave 2. Then, of course, we're moving down, and we're trying to track ourselves here. I'd say this is probably a wave 1, 3 waves up. Then we kind of come down here into what might be our wave 3, up, then 1, 2, 3, 4. I would say we've probably got one more sub wave to go to complete our wave 3. Then we should bounce, and then we should come down. So this is quite messy, but I would say it would be something. Let me find where I can find that bounce. So if this is going to be our 4 of our sub wave, this would be our wave 5 right here. So then our wave 1 must be over here. So we would go in with something like, yeah, I'd say something like this. This would make the most amount of sense. So we'd end up with a subwave count like this coming back down, but it's quite messy. It's quite actually sharp. It's on the hourly chart, not as clear. It's probably clearer on a 30-minute or a 15-minute chart. But essentially, I think we'd have 5 waves just come down ever so slightly lower, of which, if we zoom in on this little area just here, we'll assume, oh, it's actually probably a tad higher yet still to be had, maybe. So we'll just kind of watch out for that. But I would estimate that it would come down a little so slightly lower. I'm just going to take it from where it is right now. There's a double top there. So probably between 19,031 and 19,160. That's where I'd kind of estimate maybe our wave 3 to be. So I'm going to take it from that lower side. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the entire distance of wave 3 here. Assuming that we go down to this 19,000 level, 19,031 up to this higher point right here. Okay, and then our wave 4 would be approximately $20,106. So I'd put that right about here, and then we would basically delete that one off, come back down, come to our low point for wave 3, up to the high of wave 4, and predict out that our wave 5 would be somewhere here, which if I pop that right about there. Yep. Okay, so this would be basically 18,393 to about 18,783. Okay, so I'll delete that and I delete that. So then we end up with a structure that looks like this. Okay, you can see how we've started to come back down. Now, if we are in a 5-wave drop, and only if we're in a 5-wave drop, we would expect, let me actually run this the other way around, from this upside to this downside right here, we would expect the wave 2 bounce upwards to be somewhere between 50 and 88%. That would basically put this right up here. Actually, I have to come back down a little bit lower here, so 50% would be here. Okay, so that's basically right on this this line just here, which actually, if you look back, is a good area of resistance and support. So basically 20,350 up the way up to as high as 88.2%, which would come up here at 21,995. So that would be the kind of the sweet spot. And what I'd expect this to be would be some kind of 3-wave move bounce up into this area. Now, if it's a corrective zigzag pattern that forms, there is no reason for this to go as high as that. It could go higher, it could go lower. It would be a B wave, and a B wave is incredibly unpredictable. So if it was a zigzag pattern where we had an A wave coming down here, a B wave coming somewhere, and then a C wave coming down later, this B wave is not predictable. So it could be here, it could be up here, right? We wouldn't know. This would only relate to the fact if this was a 5-wave structured move where we'd have wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, wave 5, and so forth. Okay, so keep those things in mind. No guarantees of anything. What I've drawn up here is kind of speculating on the most common moves and the size of those moves, right? So a typical wave 4, where would that go? Where would a typical wave 5 go? Where would a typical wave 2 on a bounce to the upside go? Okay, these are just typical kind of moves. Gives us an idea of what to expect, at least in the terms of the direction of the market, not necessarily the very specific price points in which the market is going to go in. So I would expect some kind of 4th wave move upwards, I would expect some kind of fifth wave move downwards, okay, going down lower than the previous wave 3. I would then expect some kind of 3-wave structured move upwards, whether that is a B wave or a wave 2, we do not know. And then after that, I would expect an additional 5-wave move down, okay, and we either go down into new lower lows, or we just have a zigzag pattern, okay, and those things we just do not know until this actually starts. Okay, so for the most part, everything here for Bitcoin is kind of following our expectations. And ultimately, there's two things that we expect when we start seeing 5-wave moves. And that will be a 5-3-5, which is called the zigzag. This is basically an ABC structure, which would be like so. Okay, or we would have the 5-3-5-3-5, which is our impulsive structure, which is basically your 5-wave structure, like so. Okay, so those are the two things that we're expecting, and all of this is because these are the two things that start with wave 5. Okay, so when we see a 5-wave move like this, it has to be one of those two patterns. So knowing that means that we are likely to see more downside than we are upside, at least on the short term. And then, of course, there'll be some kind of medium-term move to the upside, and then that'll be followed with some kind of move to the downside. As I said, you cannot really have 5 waves on their own. Unless, of course, it's a 5-3-5-3-5, in which case, that would be fine. So in that case, let's bring the stochastic RSI back, okay, and we take a look here. We were heading to the overbought area, so we are likely to come back down on the hourly. The 4-hourly is actually just coming out of the oversold area. The 8-hourly chart is kind of just trying to edge its way up a little bit, and the daily chart is coming all the way down. So basically, this is indicating to us that we're looking to see this kind of 5th wave down low by seeing some volatile movements. Once we're down here, I would expect a bigger move to the upside where we take our daily stochastic RSI from oversold back to overbought, and then we drop back down afterwards, okay? And again, that basically brings in the lows. So at the moment, this estimated low point will change depending on the subwave count here, if this is going to be a 5-wave drop of significance, or whether or not this actually just becomes a zigzag pattern. We'll know more about that soon, probably within the next kind of week or so, I would have thought, but timing is incredibly hard to get right, and something I'm just, it's just something I'm not going to get right on this particular channel. Timing is incredibly difficult. Very few people ever get that right. But for the most part, that's kind of what I'm expecting for Bitcoin on the shorter time frames. Now, if I jump up into our daily, we can kind of really review the kind of price action that's gone on here. But for the most part, looking at this, we're just looking to kind of finish it off. And if we were to drop down lower than 14,000, that would be incredibly negative for Bitcoin, because we would have this as hitting an impulsive area. Then we bounce, and then we drop even lower, potentially lower than $10,000, right? As a theoretical kind of push that could occur. There's no guarantees of any of that. It's just kind of things that we'd have to look at from a probability point of view. Once you start hitting some key Fibonacci areas, such as 1.618, you're going to have some concerns. So for the most part, that's kind of what's going on from a macro standpoint. What we're waiting for really is the reversal points and the right structures to see reversal, right? At the moment, we don't necessarily see that. All of this corrective pattern, if we do see a zigzag rather than an impulsive move down into new lower lows, then we could potentially be looking at a corrective pattern upwards, which could consist of a 3-3-5 structure. So again, another way of kind of getting faked out by thinking that there's something more going on than there actually is. So we've got to be really, really cautious when we start seeing corrective patterns being strung together, and they are still corrective. There's nothing about a reversal there. So just keep these things in mind as well. Now, as I come back and just come over into our weekly chart here for Bitstamp, okay, we obviously have all of our kind of review of all of the kind of areas that have been going on in the history of Bitcoin. We'll throw the Gaussian channel on. That's still looking good. We're basically just riding this previous all-time high area as a good area of support. But for the most part, I would expect a breakdown from here soon. Unless, of course, it's just a zigzag pattern, as I spoke about. When I throw on the monthly chart and I go into the EMAs, turn the Gaussian channel off, and I go ahead and hide the drawings, we are still, of course, talking about the cross that happened here this month, and what that might mean going further forward. Have we had the low? Have we not had the low? Going down into new lower lows with the cross is going to be interesting. Crossing previously either in 2018 and 2019, this basically was the bear market low, and the same thing was being said back in 2015. So this is a key thing for us we've been talking about before, but there's nothing set in stone here here. There's no guarantee. So looking at this, I would say that, I don't like moving averages anyway. They are usually lagging. They only tell you what's happened in the past, not what's going to happen in the future. But obviously there is a correlation between how people are going to perceive this and how people are going to trade against it. So just be cautious that just because it's happened twice before doesn't mean it's going to happen for a third time. The history here for Bitcoin is incredibly short, but it is an interesting one to kind of either debunk and keep an eye on anyway. This is the 10 and 20 EMAs, as we spoke about previously as well. So yeah, guys, everything for Bitcoin is looking pretty good. I'm not concerned over anything at this point in time. I do think that we're going to see some pretty good moves for Bitcoin. We're going to see some pretty good volatile movements where we can take advantage of that from a trading perspective. And these are kind of my expectations for the short term. So I'm going to leave the video there. If you have found this useful and informative, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, then why not go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. With all that said, done and out of the way, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.